because we're going to talk NFL now as we bring in our NFL insider, as foremost on the 4-down game, Lang. And Jim, there was one upset out of 6 games last weekend. You called it. San Francisco 49ers winning at Dallas in a game, 23-17, a game that flattered the Cowboys' score. You really knew that was going to happen, didn't you?
Well, I did because of Deebo Samuel. I did because of the defense. Now, I didn't think losing Nick Bosa was going to happen in the game. That's the biggest thing for the 49ers going into this weekend's matchup against Green Bay is Nick Bosa. He did not practice yesterday. He not cleared concussion protocol. It was a pretty scary head injury that he suffered, and he is a special defensive player. But the way Kyle Shanahan has the 49ers playing, the way Deebo Samuel is utilized as a receiver and a running back and a quarterback at times, I knew that was going to give the Cowboys headaches. What I did not expect is how seemingly unprepared Mike McCarthy seemed in crunch time in the game and the lack of knowledge of the team and the Cowboys and the offense about a basic rule in football that an official, the umpire, has to touch the ball before it's snapped. And I know it's been broken down like the Zabruta film, but if Dak Prescott stops 5 yards short of where he's running, he still has plenty of field and lots of room to work for a Hail Mary for a last play because he's got the arm to do it. And he stops, looks to the official, hands the official the ball. They down it, they clock it. They have at least 1, probably 2 seconds left of the clock. I mean, there is no question. I mean, Tony Romo called it right away. Says the game's over. They were trying to snap the ball, and the official's trying to scramble to touch it. I mean, how does that happen? Of all the ways for the Cowboys to lose that game, I can't believe that was the way it happened for them. I really can't, Rod.
I can, as a Cowboys fan, and just the way things have happened. No, I can't pin it all on Mike McCarthy. Let me just say this. Jesse Palmer's called for the removal of Mike McCarthy. Thinks it should happen and will. Nick Lewis on this show yesterday, and he's a Cowboys fan, said the same thing. I didn't want him hired in the first place. Do you think on the sidelines for Dallas next year?
Jerry Jones, he's going to put another year. I don't think Jerry likes to admit he's made a mistake. Jerry doesn't like to admit that he made a wrong call about something, and he's stubborn to a fault. And all points right now, as far as I'm concerned, is Mike McCarthy's back. Unless something really crazy happens in the next few weeks, McCarthy will be back with the Dallas Cowboys because, Jerry thinks, hey, this is the team and blah, blah, blah. And, he's always, the Cowboys. Look, they have got some great young pieces on that football team, without question. There is some great talent there. They should have. I called the 49ers to win the game because of the way they were playing and the physicality of the team. Now, to me, if Dallas had played another team in the postseason, if they gotten the Eagles, they would have won it easy. The Eagles were just not prepared for the postseason this year. But, you can't pick and choose your opponent in the postseason. So sometimes you face a team like the 49ers in the playoffs. And Shanahan had the game plan. The team was better prepared to play and win in the matchup.
Yeah, comes down to coaching. I don't think Jerry's afraid to burn money at all, but he's afraid to admit that he made a mistake. Good call on that, Jim.
Yeah.
The L.A. Rams, they looked as good as they could be, I think, Monday night. Or is it because they were playing an Arizona team that wasn't as good as we thought? The Rams, to me, looked like they could be NFC champions.
Well, this is the Rams team that was envisioned at the beginning of the season, Rod. What we saw Monday in their win against Arizona was Von Miller, vintage Von Miller, when he was at his peak in Denver. He has 6 sacks in his last 5 games. He's been an absolute terror in the backfield. It wasn't just the sacks. It was the tackles for losses. It was disrupting plays. And now when Tampa starts looking at the game film, they have to game plan for Von Miller. And Tristan Wirfs, their big offensive tackle, is really hobbled with a bad ankle, is probably doubtful if he plays. He's going to be playing well over 100%. And trying to keep Von Miller out of the face of Tom Brady in that game is going to be a real challenge because offensively, I don't think anyone had any worries about the Rams' ability to score points. Not with Cooper Kupp, not with Stafford, not with Cam Akers healthy, not with Odell Beckham Jr., but it's the defense. And now Aaron Donald's got this compliment in Von Miller. You can't double Aaron Donald all day and put a offensive lineman on the island on the outside with Von Miller. He's going to eat you up. So how they handle Von Miller is going to be very, very interesting from a strategic standpoint for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and their offense, especially they're a bit banged up on the offensive line and trying to keep Tom Brady protected. But I couldn't agree more. Yes, Arizona went into a bit of a tailspin at the end of the year. But the LA Rams defense suffocated the Cardinals offense from the first series and did not allow them a single thing. They were aggressive, pressure, didn't allow anything. They didn't give them a glimpse, a hope of any semblance that they were going to get any offense going, getting any confidence in the game. They took their will to win and demolished it early in that game. And by the time Kyler Murray threw that desperation, I don't know what he was thinking to save the safety 3-yard pick six, the game was over.
Bucks favored by 3. And by the way, to our viewers, betregal.ca has introduced the RP Show promo code. Drop the promo code RP22, get $22 free to play with this weekend on NFL divisional playoff games at betregal.ca. Promo code is RP22. Up today. I got so many to get to with you, Jim. The Bills at the Chiefs. Is there any chance of an upset? This Bills Mafia has got me thinking that it could happen. What do you think?
Well, I don't think it's an upset if the Bills win. I mean, to me, this is the closest game of the weekend of the 4 matchups. The Bills have built for this for a number of years, and everything they've done has been built to this point. And for Josh Allen to have the game he did in that, unbelievably cold conditions in Buffalo, 5 touchdowns, just demolishing Bill Belichick and a Patriots team that has had the Bills number for 20 years. To do that is a huge step for the Bills organization. So they go into Kansas City and knowing they've got a great quarterback, a great defense, they've got decent special teams. They match up well against Kansas City. I think Micah Hyde and Tremaine Edmonds will do well against Travis Kelce, but you've got 2 quarterbacks coming off 5 touchdown games. You can't ask for more than that. Football fan, a read to last year's AFC Championship game. And to me, if the Bills win, it's not an upset. It's going to be a very, very close game. Now, Kansas City has everything in place to win the game, but this is going to come down to a few snaps of the ball either way because they're so evenly matched and both quarterbacks are playing so well over the last couple of weeks.
Chiefs favored by 2. Titans favored by 3.5 at home against the Cincinnati Bengals. You seem like a real believer in the Titans. Do you think they could go all the way?
They certainly could. And actually, just before I came on, Henry spoke to the media in Tennessee for the first time since the end of October. He had a full contact practice yesterday. He came away feeling good. So everything's pointing to him being in the lineup, starting. And they're not even talking about limiting his snaps as a running back in the backfield for the Titans. So if you're a Titans fan and you went 6-2, I believe, without Derrick Henry in the lineup, and you're about to get Derrick Henry, who basically almost won the NFL rushing title in half a season, back in the lineup against a Cincinnati team that's only so-so against the run, that's really good. Now, here's where things get really interesting. I think Kevin Byard and Harold Landry on the defense of the Titans, my goodness, Joe Burrow is fairly inflappable, and his connection with Jamar Chase is special. So I'm really big on Tennessee. I think it's fantastic that they're getting Derrick Henry back and they're at home. But Cincinnati is going to make this more of a game that I think some people feel. It wasn't a fluke that they won against the Raiders last week. This is a team on the rise. And even if Cincinnati loses this game, they go into the offseason knowing, let's just load up on the offensive line and some complementary positions and key positions on defense. But the core of the offense, the core of the team, it is in place there. I mean, Cincinnati is poised to be a very good and dangerous playoff team in the AFC for years to come with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. So again, this is not a slam dunk, but for Tennessee by any means. And I'm sure that Mike Vrabel is pounding it into the heads of his players all week that look at the game flow of look what Burrow and Chase have done the last few weeks in the NFL. We can't just roll our helmets out there and expect we're going to win because we're the number 1 seed, not by a long shot. So I'm fascinated to see how often they use Derrick Henry earlier in the game, how effective he is. If he starts ripping off 5, 6, 7-yard runs early, I think Cincinnati is going to go, it's going to be a long day. Because if he's in that kind of run where he's running strong, running physical, giving stiff arms, getting yards after contact, the old Derrick Henry's back. And that's going to be big for the Titans all the way to the AFC.
I got to sprinkle in a couple viewer comments. Jennifer says, I'm hoping for the matchup Rams-Packers. Rodgers owns Stafford. Boy, Aaron's pretty rich. He owns the Bears, owns Matt Stafford, but that's the Detroit Lions, Matthew Stafford. Ryan McCarthy, we have 2 minutes. I got 2 questions for you. Ryan in New York says, a question for Jim. Are other teams starting to figure out Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury?
Well, yeah, and they lost DeAndre Hopkins too, so they're figuring him out, and they lost their offensive receiving weapon that changed their offense when Hopkins got injured. And, this is to go in such a tailspin down the stretch. That's going to be tough in the offseason for the Cardinals. They're going to have to look at some things and what went wrong and what they have to change, because they didn't just lose that game. They weren't even in the game. It wasn't even close. After the first quarter, the game was over. You could have just hit the LA freeway and gone home. You didn't need to stay to the end. So that's my concern for the Arizona Cardinals. I really like is they had that great stretch through late September into early November, and then when the weather got colder, they just disappeared. So that's something they have to address. I still think there's a lot of good pieces to the Arizona Cardinals, and I like Kyler Murray, but they have to really do some evaluation of that football team and see what pieces they need to add in the offseason, because they just can't allow a team with that much talent to have that kind of last 3-4 weeks of the season and go down the toilet the way they did.
Real fast, Kevin Stefanski is logged in and says, hello, chat. Hello, Kevin. Glad to have you with us. As a Raiders fan, Jim, this is my last one. Monday, they fired the GM, Mike Mayock. What was your initial reaction as a Raiders fan?
A little surprised. I'm not sure what the direction is there. I think Rich Bisaccia earned a lot of brownie points within the Raiders locker room, and a lot of respect from the players for the way the team was held together through everything that happened in Las Vegas this year and all the off-field incidents and drama, and got them into the playoffs. And there's Max Crosby, got this talent, you got Darren Waller. There's a lot of good pieces in place with the Raiders. So if I'm Bisaccia, you're an interim coach. Mark Davis is going to hire a GM. Well, the GM's going to go, I want to hire my coach. So it could be a really different front office coaching staff and maybe a new quarterback with the Raiders for next season, depending on what happens over the next month.
Jim, wonderful visit. Enjoy the games. For Jim's latest NFL column, go to rodpedersen.com. And bud, thanks for the time as always.
Loving it.
Yeah, you bet. Jim Clubber Lang, joining us from the T-Dot.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching the RP Show on YouTube. And don't forget, we're live daily on YouTube from noon to 2 Eastern. If you like what you see, hit subscribe. And if you like the program, check around for other segments of the Rod Pedersen Show here on YouTube.